Reverend Louis Farrakhan appeared.
Louis Farrakhan.
Louis Farrakhan.
Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan.
No black man becomes great in America without the help of the Jewish people. You don't become wealthy in America without the help of white people, Jewish people. They've helped you up, and you can't deny it. That's why you're so angry with Farrakhan. I wonder what's wrong with Farrakhan. Always talking about the Jewish people. Like I'm some sick man.
For decades, Minister Louis Farrakhan has been one of the most controversial voices in Black America. His words have drawn massive crowds, sparked fierce debates, and left him branded by critics with labels he refuses to accept. But behind the fire of his speeches are stories, conflicts, and confrontations that shape the way he sees power, race, and truth. Today, we're revisiting those moments, unpacking not just what he said, but the history and tension around them. Stick around, because what you're about to hear will challenge assumptions and force you to look deeper. Let's begin.
You know, when I was a young Muslim, listen to this. I gave up my show business and got a job in the garment section of Boston, Massachusetts. And I was a little fella, and the Jewish person who owned the business, I was just eating one meal a day. So one day she came to me and said, Louis, are you trying to develop a hernia from picking up these bolts of cloth so that you can sue us? See, the devil is always looking for somebody that's going to do some harm to them. And this was a strange Negro, because I didn't eat all day. And there was a Jewish man that used to cut the fabric on the table after I brought the big roll of fabric. One day, there was a black man that they called Snow. You know how they do. See, the beautiful singers back in those days, quartet, one, the most famous, was named by white folks, called the Ink Spots. Yeah, man. This cat, he keeps laying stuff on us, you know. So while I was picking up the bolts of cloth, my Jewish co-worker had a conversation with me, and he said, you know, you're very smart. Listen, you could be the leader. I'm just in the nation a few days, and this man is telling me that I could be the leader because I seem so smart. And that's the way the devil creeps up on your ego and makes us think we are more than what we are, and then we try to show out and get busted. So when he dropped that on me, I said, Sir, I said, when you and your people were in the hills and cave sides of Europe, when you talk like that, they know you know something. I said, which one of you cavies could be the leader over Moses in your condition? That was the end of it. The man knew he was meeting a little master that he could not master. Now you think about that. I'm just coming into class. The IRS came. We want you to come downtown. Sure. He said, we haven't seen any report on your income. I said, oh, I don't have any income. Now, ain't nobody teaching me. This is just me in the way God made me. Look, no, I don't have any income. Income is money given for service rendered. I said, my job is making the blind see, making the deaf hear, the dumb speak, and raising my dead black brothers to life. You ain't got enough money to pay me for that. Listen. So God promised me a reward. So if you're still around when I get my reward, maybe you can try to tax that. Get out! That's the wisdom of my teacher. And they trying to abort me from such a class as that.
Boston in the early 1950s was a city divided by lines of race and class. And for black residents, opportunity was always conditional. Many men and women in Roxbury, where a young Louis Walcott lived, found work only in service or labor-heavy industries. One of the largest was the garment trade, dominated by Jewish shop owners and managers. In those small factories and warehouses, black workers carried the rolls of fabric, cut material, and labored long hours while rarely moving into management or ownership. For a black man who had given up a promising path in music, stepping into this environment meant confronting not only the grind of hard labor, but also the daily suspicion and condescension that came with being at the bottom of the hierarchy. The relationship between black and Jewish communities in Boston was layered with contradictions. Both groups had histories marked by exclusion, yet in this era, Jewish communities had begun to secure footholds in small business ownership, real estate, and local politics, while black communities remained locked in cycles of poverty. In industries like textiles and retail, these dynamics were most visible. Black workers supplied the labor that allowed immigrant-owned businesses to thrive, but they rarely benefited from the upward mobility those businesses generated. For a young man entering this workforce, the message was unavoidable. Your place is to work, not to lead. That experience shaped the way Farrakhan later told these stories, turning ordinary incidents of workplace tension into parables about power, respect, and racial control. Overlaying this personal struggle was the presence of the Nation of Islam, In the mid-20th century, the NOI was gaining momentum under Elijah Muhammad, who preached self-reliance, economic independence, and the rejection of white-defined systems of value. For a convert working in an industry where he was constantly reminded of his low position, the NOI's message carried a different weight. The idea that black men could reclaim dignity outside the structures of America's economy resonated deeply. That decision to abandon show business for what he described as more honest labor was also symbolic. Entertainment, particularly for black performers in the 1940s and 1950s, often came with humiliating compromises, as white-controlled industries dictated not only pay, but also image. Turning away from that world aligned him with a movement that taught that true worth was not dictated by the wages of a system stacked against you. The tension with the government, which he also recalls during this period, connects to a larger story. Throughout the 20th century, black religious movements faced scrutiny from state agencies. The IRS often targeted churches and mosques, framing their activities in terms of taxation and regulation. The Nation of Islam was no exception. Its financial independence and refusal to conform to traditional structures made it a constant subject of investigation. For Farrakhan to dismiss the very idea of taxable income was to position himself and his work as outside of the government's reach. That stance reflected a long tradition within Black America, seeing the state as less a neutral authority and more an institution of control. From the FBI's surveillance of civil rights leaders to the financial monitoring of churches, black leaders understood that their survival required resisting intrusion from systems that did not serve their communities. What emerges from this slice of Farrakhan's early life is not just the story of one man leaving behind a career in music or struggling through hard labor. It reflects the structural realities of black work in Boston, the economic divide between marginalized communities, and the constant pressure of government oversight. By retelling these early encounters, Farrakhan tied his own hardships to the wider condition of Black America, always laboring, always watched, yet always resisting the definition imposed by others. Now let's continue listening.
I'm trying to show you what kind of classroom Malcolm and Muhammad Ali and all of us were in. I was just a little fella in the class, and the white man was trying to make me rebel against my teacher. So when Brother Malcolm didn't follow the instructions of the teacher, who told him, no, President is dead, don't make any statement about it. Now, a Negro that don't have a teacher, you would laugh at Kennedy's assassination because you don't see the bigger picture. Malcolm knew the bigger picture, but he was blinded by his own feelings that he could handle it. Well, it's a case of the chickens coming home to roost. And I'm never sad when chickens come home to roost. In fact, I'm glad. Next day, same night, Malcolm X, the heir apparent of Elijah Muhammad and the black Muslims, was joking and laughing at the assassination of our president. Now, I'm in Boston, man. The Irish Catholics run the town. You're a wise man. Do you go in the face of the enemy and the messenger told you, no, don't say anything? gone. My brother, his tenure in the class was interrupted, and he decided he didn't like the punishment that his teacher gave him, and he left the class. See, when you leave the classroom of God, then you flunk life's lesson. Then death follows.
Teach it, brother minister. That's right.
Muhammad Ali shocked white people. And you loved him because he had the strength and the courage to challenge white people. You know that. I am the greatest of all time. With his handsome, braggadocious self. Then he would tell them what round they were going to fall on and knock them out in that round. See, only God could speak like that. Well, I'm going to take you down in two. And when the dude goes down in two, he said, damn, this man knew what he was going to put on me. And see, Malcolm and Muhammad, we were practicing gods. I mean, just think about practicing wisdom and making the enemy run away from you.
This moment spots Farrakhan placing himself, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and others in what he calls a classroom of struggle. He's drawing from dynamics where authority, instruction, and rebellion become metaphors for larger black resistance. To understand this, we need to trace how Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali were viewed in their time as students, challengers, and public figures. Malcolm X's early schooling was deeply interrupted. His formal education ended prematurely, and thereafter he became self-educated, reading widely during his prison years. This gave his later speeches a tone of autodidactic authority. Scholars often contrast his schooling, formal, limited, with his education, self-driven, expansive. In other words, Malcolm's classroom wasn't just a physical school, but life itself, and his refusal to remain passive under injustice became a central pillar of his leadership. In the early 1960s, Malcolm's insistence on speaking truth, even when it conflicted with authority or moderate forces, led to tensions. One well-known clash was over how the Black Muslim movement should respond to high-stakes national events, including the assassination of President Kennedy. During that period, various voices in the civil rights and Black Power movements debated whether to remain silent, compromise, or respond aggressively. Farrakhan references that clash, the tension between obeying teachers or authority figures and voicing what one sees as the higher truth. In Black communities, that debate was not abstract. It determined whether an activist would be seen as radical or dangerous. Muhammad Ali, meanwhile, offers a different but complementary model of resistance. Ali's courage was not merely in the boxing ring, but in how he publicly challenged white supremacy and state power. His refusal to be drafted for the Vietnam War cost him his boxing license and led to widespread condemnation. Yet his self-assertion, declaring, "I am the greatest," predicting knockouts, taunting opponents, became a performance of Black strength and self-determination. That approach inspired younger generations to see resistance not only as protest, but as identity. That classroom Farrakhan mentions is symbolic of the training ground of struggle. It's where Black thinkers like Malcolm learned to defy imposed authority, and where public figures like Ali tested the boundaries of public speech. It also refers to the classroom of public life, where words matter, where actions carry consequences, and where the pressure to conform is constant. This metaphor also reflects internal tension in Black leadership of that era. Some leaders counseled caution, moderation, or negotiation. Others pushed for confrontation and open disobedience. Malcolm and Ali often landed on the more confrontational side. Their willingness to break silence, refuse compliance, and adopt bold stances made them lightning rods, admired by many, attacked by many more. Farrakhan frames these figures not just as icons, but as case studies in how Black resistance learns power. The lesson of that classroom is that authority must be challenged, that discipleship includes ruptures, and that greatness is forged through testing, not passivity. In this passage, Farrakhan is situating himself as part of their cohort. He sees himself as someone who was in the same school, making mistakes, breaking away from silence, and calibrating his position between institution and insurgent. He's offering a lineage. Malcolm taught, Ali demonstrated, and he carries on. That lineage became central to how Farrakhan spoke to his audiences. His speeches often present history as a series of classes, assignments, tests, and graduation by struggle. That educational metaphor helps audiences internalize that resistance is not spontaneous because it's learned, rehearsed, and lived. Let's hear more of what Minister Farrakhan says.
Now, for the last near 40 years, I have been labeled as an anti-Semite. And most of you have heard that name applied to me and to us. They called me in, invited me to dinner, and I invited them to dinner. Top Jewish scholars came and sat at my table, my father's table, but I'm living in the house. They're sitting at my table, and they're telling me, Farrakhan, you do not try to teach us. Did you hear what I said? I'll give you his name, Rabbi Shalman, who was the dean of all of the rabbis in Chicago. Say, you don't lecture us. That's for me to do. In other words, how dare you, nigga? I mean, underneath, that's what it's all about. How dare you think that you can criticize and correct us? So I looked at the rabbi. I said, Rabbi, there was a rich man in the Bible who persecuted Lazarus. And the rich man died. And Lazarus was in the bosom of Abraham. And the rich man said, hey, Laz, could you come down and put a drop of water on my parched tongue? Abraham wouldn't even let Lazarus speak. He said, there's a gulf between you and him, and he can't come to put no water on your tongue. Now the rabbi knows the parable. he had some brothers. He said, well, could you let him go to my 5 brothers and give them some water? Because evidently the whole family was catching hell. And Abraham said, no, he can't come to your brother or your brothers. I said, you know, Rabbi, are you telling me that if I came from God with a message for you, that you would reject me because of my color and the wisdom that is in my mouth is for your salvation?
Farrakhan describes nearly 4 decades of being labeled as anti-Semitic. He insists that despite accusations, he has hosted Jewish scholars at his table and engaged in dialogue. He recounts a confrontation with a rabbi who resisted being lectured by him and responds with a biblical parable about the rich man and Lazarus to question whether a messenger from God could be rejected because of his color or origin. The scene functions as an attempt to claim moral authority. He frames himself not as aggressor, but as one called to speak truth, even when unwelcome. To understand this, it has to be placed against the backdrop of Farrakhan's long and contentious record with Jewish communities, and how that record has shaped Black and Jewish relations in America. From the early years of his leadership in the Nation of Islam, Farrakhan and the movement were accused of anti-Semitic rhetoric. Critics highlight statements where he characterized Jews as controlling finance, media, and government, as well as publications from NOI affiliates that argued Jews had been central to the transatlantic slave trade. Jewish and civil rights organizations, including the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center, have consistently designated the NOI as anti-Semitic. One recurring tactic in Farrakhan's defense is to present himself as open to dialogue, emphasizing that he has invited rabbis, shared meals, and created opportunities for exchange. In his telling, the rabbi in Chicago resisted being corrected by him, revealing the cultural and religious tension over who has the right to teach whom. Farrakhan uses this to suggest that Jewish leaders reject critique from a Black Muslim voice, which he frames as proof of racial prejudice. The parable of Lazarus and the rich man has long been used in Christian preaching to emphasize judgment and reversal of fortunes after death. Farrakhan invokes it to imply that his message, though dismissed by earthly authority, carries divine weight. He casts himself as a prophet whose wisdom should not be ignored simply because of his race or faith. By applying scripture to a modern interreligious conflict, he tries to position himself as aligned with God's justice, while his critics are aligned with the arrogance of the wealthy oppressor in the parable. This confrontation also highlights the wider historical fracture in Black and Jewish relations. During the civil rights era, Jewish and Black leaders had often worked side by side in campaigns for equality. By the 1980s and 1990s, those ties weakened as Farrakhan's rhetoric grew sharper. His references to Jews as exploiters or as enemies of Black liberation alarmed Jewish organizations and fractured alliances. For many Black listeners, however, his defiance resonated because it framed him as unafraid of challenging those perceived to have power. Farrakhan is not only defending himself from charges of bigotry, but also redefining the conflict as one of moral legitimacy. He suggests that Jewish leaders fear his critique because it comes from outside their authority, from a Black voice claiming divine mandate. His defense is not an apology or softening of rhetoric. Instead, it is an assertion that what is seen as hate is, in his view, a form of truth-telling. That posture has kept him a polarizing figure, condemned by many, embraced by others, who see him as unbending in the face of powerful opposition. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share this video so more people can join the conversation. And don't forget to subscribe to Black Culture Unlocked for more deep analysis into Black history, culture, and voices that shaped our world. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.